Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Patriot Show. I'm your host, Anthony Stephen Malone, and I am joined by a very special guest today as well, Magda Khalifa. She is an American combat veteran, and she is the founder of Triangular Fragrance New York. She has had a hell of a life, and she has got one hell of a story to tell as well. Hello, Magda. How are you?
Hi, Anthony. Great to be here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate connecting like this.
Hey, it is not a problem. It is great to have you on the show, and it's great to have you speaking to our combat veterans in the United Kingdom as well. Right, where to start? I actually know an awful lot about you, but my a lot of my viewers will not. First things first. Where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from the New York area, New York City area. I grew up there, spent the 70s, 80s, 90s there. I was married, had a career, very lucrative career. Life was good. Life was really good until it wasn't.
Right. Obviously, September the 11th,
The
the
11th
attack
hit.
on the World Trade Center. Yeah. Everyone
Mhm.
remembers where they were that day. Where were you when that actually happened?
Yes. Yes. So I lived on the North Jersey side. So we had a clear shot of the World Trade Center and the entire, well, not the entire, but most of the New York City skyline. And my husband at the time, we're no longer married, but he worked in the 101st floor of Tower One. But they had different offices. They had about 3 different offices. So he was not in the New York City office that day, thankfully.
That day.
But he did lose 200 coworkers.
Yeah.
He worked for a company called Aon. They were the second largest loss of the companies that were there. Cantor Fitzgerald was had the 600 plus losses, of course. So
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Yeah, that was a very emotional day, and that was the day that didn't just change the world, it changed a lot of people's perspective on what they were going to do in their lives. It changed mine dramatically. And obviously with yourself, can you speak a little bit of how you felt and your journey that really started on that day?
It did. I mean, I had a great upbringing. You know, my parents stayed together. They created an environment for me to achieve and to win and prosper, no matter what I ended up doing. So I left that life behind. I left. I didn't know it at the time, but I left, my husband behind, my family behind, my friends, everything, because I needed to serve. My initial feeling after, obviously shock to see these towers brought down like that, and then to see successively what else was done, the other attacks around the country, of course, in DC and in Pennsylvania. So shock, like everybody else. Communications lines were down. We didn't have the technology we have today, of course, and then we had all the antennas and towers or whatnot on top of the World Trade Center. So when that came down, of course, that affected our communications. I had family members right in the heart of the city at the moment, and we lost communications with them. Thankfully, everybody made it out over several hours. But that being said, there was a lot of shock, and then as we learned what had happened, this was a deliberate attack. It turned to anger, and then at the same point, there was grief because as the search and rescue continued, and there weren't bodies to pull out, after a certain point, then it was tragic, so tragic. And the gravity of that set in. Additionally, for anybody who's been in the areas of those attacks, physically not seeing the towers anymore was extremely impactful because they were, huge and tall. They were a landmark. And we had a joke, like you could be anywhere in the city, you could be out, come out on the subway, you're out drinking at the bars, you come out, you don't know where you're at, just look and see where the World Trade Towers were, the Twin Towers were, because, and then you had your bearing. So they were not there. So there was, like, visually, there was that impact as well. Additionally, the smell of the smoke that traveled, for about a week above the city. You could see that cloud and you could smell it across the river. So there were, all your senses were affected by it, everything. It's just unbelievable to
Yeah.
have witnessed that. Like just mind blowing.
Very
Talk
difficult
about it
to
a
put
lot, but
that
yeah,
into
I,
words,
I,
I think.
I'm sorry.
It was very difficult to put that feeling into words, isn't it?
Yes, it does. It never gets easy. I've shared the story, but yes, thinking about it, just surreal in such a way that, it's almost indescribable. I do describe some of it in the book, of course, not everything, but anyway, it compelled me to do something, and I wanted to serve and go over and kick some butt. Like, that was my mindset. I was so angry about what had happened, the attack on our country, and literally in my backyard. And so my husband at the time, well, he wasn't at that time, but he is a former Marine.
Right.
So, and I had done ROTC in college, and so I had some exposure there, but I didn't commission. I talk about why in the book. But when so I've always had a fascination with the military. At that point, that was my call. We just were attacked, like literally right there.
Yeah.
And it was just too close of a call, and it was too big of an impact it changed my life for sure. Yes, absolutely. 100%. And I knew I was leaving, what I was leaving behind, logically. I did not know what I would be experiencing when I returned from war. So going to war, I felt good that I was part of a fighting force, the best fighting force, but like, that was very therapeutic. War was therapeutic, to be able to be a part of that, part of a team. But to come back, I did 2 tours. So I came home for like a year in between the 2 tours to Iraq. So when I came back from the second one in 2007, that was rough. That was rough. There was no guidebook. There was really no support, and I had to figure things out. And I didn't have answers and understanding. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand the health issues, why I felt the way I felt, and why I, physically and in my mind, there was just a lot going on, and every day became a struggle for survival. Although I was functional, and I'm very grateful for that. I had, I had my undergrad. I hadn't completed my master's, but I started the master's program. I had professional experience prior to going in the military. I was 29 years old when I enlisted, so 30 or 31 when I went over. So I had skills. I had, points on the board that could help me. So I was able to function. When I came home, I eventually, with the divorce and the motorcycle accident and everything else that was going on, I was able to get a job as a defense contractor. And that was a good thing. There was stability in the sense I had a purpose. I had, a job to go to where I felt, I was able to help train new generations of war fighters. I was Army, but I was training the Navy, and they were, of course, with the demands of the war, they were growing and finding themselves, getting more and more involved in many ways the way the Army was, and the Marines were as well, on the ground with small teams and whatnot. So we were able to train them and take our lessons learned from the battlefield and bring that back. And that was very gratifying, to have that purpose. So I had an off tempo, but outside of work, I reclused. I drew back from society. I was not, the social butterfly I was previously, to joining. So that being said, over a period of time, I was able to have some small wins that helped me kind of get my bearing and start to heal and grow and grow. And that's really what that journey was all about. It was about growth. And that's how I was able to traverse over to all that I'm doing right now, which is a 180-degree difference from where I was. And that's part of the value I try to share with others, is to show them, look, it may be, 7, 8 years before I have that breakthrough. But if you stick with it and believe in yourself and really strive for more, you're going to get there.
That is some of the most inspirational advice I have heard in a long time. And I know you're talking from experience. That isn't a punchline, that's actually, you've lived it. And I absolutely respect that. You've written a book as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes. So other than maybe one or two of my closest inner circle, battle buddies, nobody knew, the hardest things that I went through, right?
Yeah.
Like we all go through difficult things when you deploy, So I finally got to a point in my growth where I realized I love helping others, but I need to share my story so they can understand why. Why would they want to seek guidance, from me, or or anything else for that matter. So that being said, I decided to write my memoir. It's not just about war. It does bring in a lot from before war, because I think that's an important part of the story. And then, of course, the journey afterwards. So there are 3 parts to the book, in that respect. I do provide some history in there because I think that's important to capture, some of the key battles that I was a part of, that I was witness to. I felt it was, I survived that. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to capture that and share that, from a historical standpoint. And also share the stories of some of our brave soldiers who we lost, and, document, at least from my perspective, their contribution there, for prosperity, because that's an important part to keep their stories living on. So I shared all that in the book, but the book wasn't, I made sure from the beginning it wasn't just going to be a story just to tell a story. I wanted it to provide value points for folks so that they could start to look at their lives and whatever struggles they were dealing with, and perhaps apply or some of these points, or if not apply it, at least consider looking at things in a different perspective. And that might be enough to get them through to the next chapter in their lives. I don't know,
Yeah, you all the information on your book, the link to where people can buy your book is on the information underneath the interview. So when people finish watching it, it will all be there as well. As a combat veteran myself, I highly recommend the book. It's not just about the combat, it's about the thought process before, during, and after. And a lot of veterans can gain a lot of understanding from reading about your experiences. You're a very humble person, and you're very honest as well. You speak a lot about how you felt when you were going through a lot of this, and a lot of other combat veterans feel exactly the same. So thank you for doing the actual book. I think a lot of guys can get a lot of experience out of that. Okay, so after you've done the book, where did that take you?
Sure. So the book came out about 14 months ago, 14, 15 months ago. And, I started receiving feedback from veterans and non-veterans, but it was positive feedback in terms of, what I was hoping it would accomplish. It was helping people kind of look at things a little differently, because everybody has a unique story. So, it was a unique story. So that being said, I started speaking on podcasts, and then I kind of realized that, hey, I need to do what others aren't doing to get my message, which is going to, potentially drown amongst so many messages that are out there and all the noise, with technology. There's just so much hitting us each day. Yeah. So I realized, hey, it may be time to, consider a physical product that can introduce people to what it is that I have to offer them, So that's where I came up with the concept for Triangle Fragrance 2.5 months afterwards. And I thought I would make a fragrance, luxury fragrance, why not? Something nice for men and for women. Okay. And this way I could serve people globally with the fragrance. And one of the features of the fragrance is the little collector's card that comes with each fragrance. Each fragrance are six in the line, and they each have their own story and their own collector's card. And you can think of it as self-help affirmations. There's statements that tie to the book and the lessons in the book. Um, I realized that I omitted the freedom triangle. So what's on my hat right here? This is the freedom triangle. So I introduced a philosophical concept in the book, and that's kind of the contribution to the world, really. Veteran or not, that's something that everybody can aspire to achieve in their life. Okay. So triangle fragrance is inspired by the freedom triangle, which is introduced in the book.
Exactly. I think people need to read a little bit about you and understand a little bit. Right. So I just wanted my viewers to realize that you're the only female American combat veteran who also runs her own f- fragrance line in New York City. That is a massive thing. Right? You,
Well,
yeah, that is massive. You have done so much there. You've achieved it. I mean,
so
it's done.
I mean, there's
Incredible.
still a long way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, but you've there. You've got it. You've got your product. You are a veteran, and that is awesome. I think everyone watching this should look you up, have a look at the story, read it, and support you in any way that they can. I think you're going to go on to do massive things, for want of a better word, and a lot of good will come out of not just your book, but out of your company as well. And it's great to actually have you on the show as well. It's great.
Thank
Right.
you, brother.
Um,
Your
I'm
words
just
mean a
gonna
lot.
yeah, I'm just going to take you back a little bit. When you were in the Middle East, how did you find the culture?
So, and that's the thing, people would wonder, oh, wait a minute, how did the Iraqis react to you? Because we interacted with them. I was in a civil affairs unit under Army Special Operations. So, we met with them on a daily basis, the regular civilian populace, as well as tribal leaders and elected officials. So there were a couple of the male leaders who, did not shake hands with, myself and my sister soldiers, but we still engaged and had dialogue and were able to achieve things. But I kind of think back, like when you're in uniform with your weapon and you're out and about on a mission, like gender like, doesn't matter. I mean
Yeah.
it's different. That's a different situation. That's absolutely different. That was not obviously an issue. I mean, everybody knows, when you have a weapon, you can pull the trigger. So it doesn't matter who's behind that weapon. So not an issue at all. So so my father, rest in peace, he's no longer with us, but he hailed from Egypt. My mother from Colombia. So they met in New York City in the late 60s. So I had the chance to visit Egypt and Colombia in the 80s, 90s. And so I was familiar with desert terrain and, and the Middle Eastern food and whatnot from having visited there. So Iraq was a little bit different, but only like, I would say like the difference between like, Brooklyn and Queens, New York City, like different boroughs. So we used interpreters, of course. I didn't know enough Arabic from little, rush studies before deploying. So we used interpreters to communicate with with the people that we were engaged with when we were having
Okay.
discussions.
My next question, I think a lot of the veterans will be very interested in this. When you first returned after your second tour,
Mhm.
how did you feel about going from a combat zone the second time back to America into civilian street? How did you feel about that?
I hated leaving. We left. couple weeks prematurely, but the way things worked, with our deployments, like we were piecemeal to different units, and so I basically my unit, we left the men and women we were serving with while they were still there. So that right there, that was the first a break point, if you will, in this transition, leaving the people behind. Of course, I had no say in it. I didn't, but that was that. And then coming home, specifically, I remember the first week, we had about a week of administrative, hey, you're home, let's do your, administrative paperwork and then boot you.
Yeah.
So we had about a week, and yeah, some terrible things happened and a lot of our brethren that we had just been serving with 3 weeks earlier were killed by VBID truck bombs. So that was rough. Literally, I remember being in the trailer and looking up at the TV and seeing the news and the region where it happened.
Yeah, that was not obviously today is a very prominent and emotional day for you as well. So thank you for agreeing to come on today of all the days. Can you explain to my viewers why today is so special?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you, because I am very honored to be able to shed light on Specialist Nicole Fry. So we were battle buddies. She was 11 years younger than me. We went to basic training and our advanced training together. And then we ended up, even though she was from Wisconsin and I was from New York, we ended up deploying together on our first deployment in 2004. And that was February of 2004. And our unit had only been in country about 3 days when she was killed by a roadside bomb, a 155 howitzer. So yeah, we lost her immediately after getting in country. Other members of that particular convoy were injured, but they did survive.
Right.
Some of my very close friends. So that set the tone for things. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that obviously impacted me. I was one of the people who knew her best, and and the story I get into the book about the story why we were separated in the the fog of war, when units arriving and everything, communications breakdown and whatnot. And I had a lot of guilt because of that reason. Not that it was, again, my fault at all, but I did go through the whole, that could have been me that was driving instead of her. And it just kind of really, hit you like a ton of bricks. Like that was the first incident that, where you realize how real things are and how fortunate you are, but then you're kind of, I don't know, I went through the whole guilt for a long time. So even after coming back home, and of course I lost many other brethren, afterwards as well, over the 2 tours I did. But coming back home, I had a lot of guilt and never really had anyone I could talk to sort that out or process it. It took time. The good news is I'm honored, now with what I'm doing, especially being in business and speaking, I have the opportunity to speak about an American hero, and that's a privilege. And I think it's important to do that. We've lost so many, of course, and people who are not otherwise tied to the military don't necessarily know their stories. So I did, check with her family and shared in the book. I shared a section about her, and I felt that was important from a historical standpoint. So now, I was thinking about this morning because it always happens. It never fails that the night before, I dream. I have vivid dreams of just whatever it is, and I know why. It's because my mind has an internal calendar. Today is an actual anniversary, right? So 17 years since we lost Specialist Nicole Fry, with my Nikki. But and I think about how that just serves as a reminder of how fortunate I am. And I do believe she has been my guardian angel, because there were a lot of times after, well, first of all, the next tour, I had so many near misses and like ridiculous. And it was kind of because I was always, I was one of those soldiers who just maybe a little crazy, but always, volunteered and went out and was up in the turret or whatever the case is. And a lot of near misses where, 20 minutes earlier or whatnot, had I been there, and it's just kind of like, okay, I realize now, like Nikki was looking out for me. And as such, that's one of the driving factors I'm compelled to, and that's what I believe, but one of the driving factors I'm compelled to do a lot and give back. And because I realized the roles could have been reversed. And, since I have been afforded this opportunity to live life and do things and enjoy freedoms, it's my duty to live the best life I can and to become the best version of myself.
Yeah.
So that, I believe, and I feel veterans feel this way too, so that the losses of our friends who were denied that privilege, so that wasn't in vain.
Yeah, I think after like someone a bit like you, so thank you for being so open and honest as well. I think a lot of people who have been in combat, and especially like Iraq, from the American side and the British side, and obviously the other countries like Canada, we lost a lot of troops. When I was with 101st Airborne, we were getting hit all the time. We lost a lot of men, and you never forget it. But if you're one of the ones who survives, you have a very different perspective. I think we appreciate life a lot more, the little things we do, and we honor the people who didn't make it back. We honor them every day by doing the good that they're not around to do. It is a very difficult one. The anniversaries, we've all lost friends in uniform. It doesn't get any easier. But it's good to remember how they lived as well, how they lived their lives. I think that's very important. And the fact that you're able to talk about the anniversary, I think, is a very important part, and it keeps the memory of your battle buddy alive as well. So important, that I know her family will really respect that as well.
Anthony, if I can humbly submit, I think you're right. It doesn't get easier, but you find a way to manage. Of course, we must move on in life, of course, and keep in mind too, people who did not serve, they've lost loved ones. This past year with this pandemic, people have lost loved ones that they didn't, get to see in their final months because of what was going on and stuff. So that being said, I believe that one of the best ways to help yourself get through those, anniversaries and whatnot is be so busy, be so, absolutely busy with your mission and what it is that you're trying to do, that you take the time to grieve and to remember and honor, of course, but at the same point, you also have so much responsibility that it gives you something to sink your teeth into. Because if you do not have that hobby or responsibility, it's going to be a lot harder. So I encourage veterans to find that, or anybody who's struggling, with grief of the loss of find something, turn that pain into something positive.
Yeah. Through everything you've been through, has it changed your outlook on life and your priorities?
Certainly, having, I think the biggest chapter was, being deployed overseas. Certainly, that's a very unique situation, as you know. So it did change me, for better, for worse. I think overall just an appreciation for sure of our freedom and understanding what that means, what that really means. I've always, prior to war, prior to our country being attacked, have, appreciated the military, appreciated, always, stood for the flag and shown respect. But it has a different meaning now, an even more powerful meaning.
Yeah.
And, that's a big part of it, having gone through that. Such an honor to, share that long line of history with veterans from, there were few left today, the greatest generation, World War II, but to have that kind of connection because they answered the call. And, with our generation who has answered the call, to have that connection, it's just a powerful feeling. And it kind of just helps you realize where, what you need to be grateful for in life, for sure. I look at it as a positive.
It
yes,
is absolutely. Everyone's been through hard times. Everyone's got memories. War isn't a nice thing at the best of times, but a lot of us have been through it. We use it as an experience, and we do a lot of good in the world. Obviously, have you got a personal message to any combat veterans out there that are going through, because of COVID across America and England at the moment? Do you have a message for the veterans that were going through a hard time? What would you like to say?
Yes, absolutely. So I know there are veterans who've been in for a long time and newer veterans as well. And it doesn't change. What we've ponied up to do, right, really shows our tenacity, our resilience. We're collectively doing something that the majority of our countries are not doing. So when you feel a moment of weakness, or you feel an urge to turn towards something that may not be, anything more than a Band-Aid fix for you and may actually take you down a hard path, I encourage you all to dig deep and realize what you are made of and that you are fully capable of transcending that. But you need to reach out to other vets. You need to connect with people. Trying to solve it on your own is not necessarily the best way. Trust me. I've been blessed with mentors, mentors, especially in the business world, but recently. And I think how much my life has changed in 2 years because of that, because I kept that growth mindset and realized there are people who maybe they didn't wear the uniform, maybe they didn't do what I did, but they have figured out a few things in life. And if I just open up my ears and listen, then some of that will seep in. And it did. And I absolutely encourage other veterans to do that. There's so much personal development and professional development as well that you can tie into that can help you figure those things out, and you can hear what you need to hear to get past a difficult, rough spot and find purpose and find significance, which is an even higher calling. And that is powerful. I'll tell you, Anthony, my goal is to do things greater in life that it makes my time in the service pale in comparison. That's my goal. That's what I'm striving for.
I have a feeling you're getting there. Hopefully. Now you are. Obviously, I know a little bit more off camera, and I class you as a friend as well. You are definitely moving on to some amazing things. So a year from now, I will invite you back on the show, and it'd be very interesting to see what happens in this year, because big things coming there, definitely. If anyone wants to buy your perfume or aftershave, where can they find that?
Sure. So the fragrance is available for men and women on trianglefragrance.com. And if they're interested in the book, if they go to americandreamthebook.com, there are links for the digital, the paperback, the hardcover, and whatnot. So yeah. Brilliant. And I hope anybody that's listening that has received any value or has any questions, please reach out to me, because I love to connect with people, especially our veteran brethren.
We will definitely be putting all the information on the interview link. And if anyone's got any messages or any questions, please either speak to Magda or fire me a personal message. I will relay that to Magda. Right, Magda, I would like to say thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you on here. I hope to see you in New York in the not too distant future as well, obviously. So you guys take care of yourself. Would you like to say anything else to anyone?
I want to thank you very much, brother. Thank you for the
That's
chance
just-
to be able to speak to fellow veterans, and keep doing what you're doing. It's making a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
Always, always. Okay, well, I'd like to say thank you very much for all my supporters, all my sponsors, and everyone who has taken the time to watch this interview. I hope you gained some interesting points from that. Magda, if you can stay on the line, please, we will have a chat in a few minutes. Okay, everybody, stay safe and enjoy your week. Thank you very much for watching The Patriot Show. Goodbye.